Hey there everyone, Spazzy Dragon here, aka Syndromes, and welcome to my little video on the recent mod update. So this is gonna be a first impressions video, so check the date when it's actually released, because by the time that this video comes out, or by the time you actually watch it, things might have changed. So, the recent mod update changed two of our ships. One would be the Barge, and the other was the Zoner Corvo. And there's already some controversy going around whether or not these ships are actually balanced or whether or not they're actually worth buying. So this video is going to contain my own personal thoughts of how these things are actually worthwhile to you as a player, or whether or not you want to buy them. So obviously, a quick reminder, I'm currently on my own server, so it's going to be maybe kinda laggy because I'm currently on my laptop. I'm in the office, currently taking the break, and just using my free time to actually get a video out once in a while. So the first things first, the moment the ships were introduced in the game, we already encountered some technical difficulties when the mod developers forgot to add the affiliation to the actual ship. It used to be a Zoner ship, at least the Corvo itself, and so even though it was changed into a civilian-heavy gunship kind of thing, which is more reminiscent of the Salvager and Raba, it is actually still counted as a Zoner ship, and so every single ID that didn't have a Texel affiliation with it was reduced to 10%. So, first of all, let's going to quickly... Well, first of all, so I'm gonna sneeze, and secondly, we're going to set our affiliation to zoners, so setrep testy gdz grp1, that would be our zoner, and testy freeport 6. So as of right now, these ships are both being sold on Freeport 6 and Tau 29, and on Caddis base on Omicron Theta. And we are going to start with the smaller one, as the Zoner Corvo, or as it is now called, the Civilian Explorer. So the Civilian Explorer costs 150 million credits, so it's technically the same amount as you would pay for a cruiser. So let's see what do we get if we buy this thing. So set cash, testy, let's go with 500 million credits, and just see what do we have. So first things first, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 gunboat turrets. Let's quickly sell these things off, we're not gonna need them. And the first thing you will notice is that we actually do not have a cruise disruptor, which is obviously kinda balanced out by the fact that we at the same time get a cruiser shield, which is a big deal, as well as equipment type 1. It means that this thing is supposed to scan stuff, and we're gonna return on that later because that kinda makes the ship kinda broken, but again, we're going to go through this carefully. So this is the thing. This is the same thing as the Raba and the Salvager. It is a gunboat-ish ship. This thing also has 1,200 units of cargo space, and it doesn't have a CD, so this is obviously not a solo ship if you want to, do some sort of combat in it or anything else. We probably don't need anything else from here, so let's just quickly sell these things off as well and actually buy it. Okay, as far as I know, there's nothing we can buy here to set it up, so the first things first, we're actually gonna drop ourselves on the barrier gate. Just gonna see if it's am I on barrier gate? Yes, I am. I'm not really going to bother with set repping if I can just buy a freelancer. There we go. So let's see what this ship has to offer. So as I already mentioned, it has 5 gunboat turrets, which is a good thing. We're gonna return to that in a moment. But one of the things that actually makes this particular ship kinda interesting is the fact that it is supposed to be a scanner ship. So if you mount a jump drive coordinate scanner on this thing, you will be able to enter house space and start scanning without having to bring some sort of capital ship in, which is a really nice thing to have. But at the same time, it kinda borks the whole thing. Well, first things first, I don't think they actually released a micro patch for this ship, so let's undock with a civilian ID. No, it's still reduced to 10%, so let's beam ourselves back to Freeport 6 and quickly grab a zoner ID. Hopefully that's going to be enough to actually fix our... Where is it? Zoner ID, there we go. Okay, we're all ready. So the model didn't change at all, so did the handling. So as you can see, it is actually a cruiser, just with gunboat weaponry, and it is just as slow, but at the same time it's kind of small even for a cruiser, so you wouldn't have really any problems avoiding fire if you suddenly get shot by something. But there you go. Okay, beam, testy, barrier. So here comes the interesting part of the ship. So in order to scan for to actually be able to use the scanner, your ship needs to meet the minimum core. Now what this means is that this particular ship, if we go into the info card, it actually says that it has a power output of 1,400,000. So this means that small gunships have 400,000 power core. If we just remove this one, then it you get the idea. This thing has a lot of core and at the same time really good recharge. So basically what this means is that for example, let's mount Arl Cerberus turrets. Now this is something nobody really does anymore, apart from a few specific people. And as you can see, let's just try not to shoot from inside the base. So you're not draining your power plant with Cerberus guns, which is obvious because you're technically a cruiser, so if you want actual cruiser DPS on this thing, you might as well go with full Cerbs. I wouldn't recommend it because they're still kind of slow for a ship this size, but that's actually not the broken part. Okay, where's the quick dock? Fuck it. Let's just dock like this. But that's not what makes this ship kind of broken. This is. So I know what you're thinking. Okay, so wait, how many missiles can this thing mount? All missiles. How many missiles can this thing launch? We're gonna see in a moment. So these are the basic gunboat missile turrets. We're just gonna mount all of them for the sake of, sake of example. Buy all the missiles, undock and see what happens. So usually you would mount one missile on a light gunboat or gunship, or 2 missiles on a heavy. So let's just go and see what happens. First of all, I'm going to use 2 missiles, and we launch 1, and we are ready to refire, and my core has completely restocked at that point already. So it means that I'm currently just shooting these missiles as I feel it. Like, look at my power core. I wouldn't say that it instantly regens, but you can sort of see how this is a problem. If anything, this thing is gonna be kind of brutal against fighters, so if you're a freelancer and you suddenly are bounty hunting with a friend of yours, you can actually bring the ship along. But here's the thing, how many missiles can we shoot at the same time then? Let's go target that Bactrian again, and see how much damage can we put out on this thing from one salvo. Okay, let's launch. 3, 2, 1, launch. Yes, I just launched 5 missiles. If I was playing with friends, this sort of damage would actually require me to have most of my friends online. Poosh. So obviously we're using basic gunboat missiles. They're not that powerful, and obviously they're also not that they're not that demanding when it comes to power plant. But you have to admit this is kind of fucked up, where I can literally chain fire missiles like this. Just look at this. This is not normal. I'm literally chain fire missiles. For most IDs, this is not really going to be that much of a problem because they're not. For example, the rogue ID, for example, allows us to use only basics, so this sort of ship and loadout wouldn't really be that effective, because this would basically mean that if we have 40 missiles, we're gonna have like what, 8 salvos worth of ammunition, so that doesn't really cut it. But for example, there are IDs which have a pretty decent amount of actual, choices when it comes to tech cells. For example, the Wild basically get about 90% on pretty much everything. So the Wild ID would be one of those IDs which could technically mount one of every single gunboat missile turret in the game and fire them at 90%. That's crazy. So this thing, I don't know how to feel about this. I mean, for all, I can see the possibilities. Like, the inner troll in me can see the possibilities where I can do with this thing, but at the same time, what? Did we really need another ship like this? I mean, we already have people fussing over the Salvager and the Rabas, like, is it a gunboat or is it a transport? Is this a gunboat or is this a cruiser? Because, wow. Also, at the same time, this thing thrusts at a normal cruiser speed, which is okay, but this thing still has a cruiser shield, so if you're flying with a friend and you encounter a gunboat, you can pretty much wail on them and just sit behind them with a cruiser shield. This thing, if you have someone to CD someone for you, is just... I have this feeling they're probably just going to rip some poor guy apart in a 1 versus 1 battle if they're a gunboat, regardless of what they're using. So, what were they thinking? I'm not really sure, and it's probably best that we don't find out anyway. So, this would be the Corvo. Let's go back to the Freeport and actually get ourselves the carrier. Testy. There we go, 1 billion credits. So, the next one is the civilian liner, which is called the civilian carrier. Civilian carrier. What? I realized we had to kind of name this thing somehow, but civilian carrier? It's like saying, I don't know, civilian tank or civilian attack drone or, I don't know, civilian attack copter. Or I realize that we don't need to kind of compare real life to Freelancer, but even this is really pushing it. Testy barrier gate. I'm not really sure that I have any kind of weapons on the barrier gates, especially for a cruiser. But yeah, see, here's the thing. Okay, so first things first. This thing has all cruiser turrets, which is okay. It also doesn't have a CD, which is okay. It doesn't have a countermeasure, and it has heavy carrier base, which can actually be able to dock super heavy fighters and freighters, and 3 regular ones for snubs. So that's a lot of ships. At the same time, you have equipment. You can jump, you can cloak, everything's fine. In terms of power, you actually have... This is a small battleship plant, if I'm not mistaken. You have cruiser turrets on it, so obviously you're not really going to run out of any... you're not really going to run out of power on this thing. But there's a couple of things that I really don't like about the ship. Okay, let's start off with the model itself. This is the recycled model and kind of redone model of the order carrier. And first things first, I personally love how this looks. I love this little shape, kind of armor-plated front. I really love that it kind of looks like a massive space gun, but then again, like, which ships don't? So the model itself is kind of cool. It has been kind of resized, but there you go. Okay, the first thing you will notice when you dock on this thing is that you don't actually have a thruster, which is kind of bad. For ships this size, trying to dodge is kind of a big deal, especially when everyone's going to be hunting it down. So the base armor on this thing is also not that much for a ship its size, especially if you compare it to what you had with a barge. But that's not the only issue here. So what do we know? We don't have a thruster. We can't really move around that much. At the same time, we actually have a transport shield. It means that if you're taking a Nova bomber squad against this thing, that shield is gonna fall off with 2 Novas or something. That's not really gonna help you, and let's just say that this thing is a really big target in the first place. You might as well not even bother with a shield at this point then. Testy Skyhook. Let's see if they actually sell the cruiser weapons here, because I think this is where the Corval used to be sold at. No, this is not where it goes. I'm trying to remember where... Nah, actually, screw it. Set Rep Testy FCLR GRP1. Set Rep Testy FCLR Guardian 1. Beam Testy IV-13 near 3 base. So we're just going to drop off on Rogue base, because I know for a fact that we do have, you know, cruiser equipment here, which is a good thing. Okay, first things first, you do not have heavy slots. This is a bad thing. You're basically limited to pulse cannons, Solarises, which by the way were nerfed. Their refire was nerfed as far as I know, and basic turrets and obviously zappers, which are not even worth mentioning. So let's actually just mount all of these guns. You do get a decent amount of guns, actually. Let's just check how many you actually get. 8 guns. On a cruiser, fair enough. This is not 12 guns, but there you go. So, what do we get? We have 5 guns forward. You have 4 guns to one side. Okay. I stand corrected. I actually had to wait until some of these things actually turned. Yeah, okay, you have 5 to the front, 5 to the sides. Let's actually wait this time. 5 to the back. Let's wait for these to turn again. You actually have more than that. You have 6 firing up. Not like it's going to matter. And 6 firing down. So basically, you're kind of screwed when it comes to firepower. Although, to be fair, for a liner, it has more firepower than a liner technically. Although I think that a liner with 12 turrets and all Charons would probably out DPS you anyway. But there you go. At least when you fire, your power core doesn't drain at all. But seriously though, is this... So this is where the controversy actually starts. I'm not really counting all the players who spent like 5 to 4 billion credits acquiring their barges in the last few years, especially when they got pulled out of the sales, right? So you only had so many you can choose from, and not a lot of players really wanted to part with their barges, and they would, you know, either really bump up the price or anything else. But now that these things are changed to this, I'm not even sure this thing is worth 500 million credits, though. For 500 million credits, you get a shield. You get a ship whose shield is going to fall off after a few shots. You have no heavy turrets. You can only fire 5 in forward and back to the sides, and only 1 more if you fire down or up. You don't get a thruster. You don't get a lot of hit points. And how many bots and bots we actually had? 800 nanobots. Kinda decent, I suppose. Not really what I'm looking for anyway. And this thing, by the way, cannot mount a scanner, which is odd. So the civilian Corvo is now the scanner ship, and this would be the jump ship. This thing can jump. No doubt about it. This thing has 1,800 cargo units worth of space. It also has a countermeasure, which means that it mount a cloak, so that's also good. But there you go. Is this thing worth 500 million credits? I can see a couple of IDs who would agree. Let's just say it's kind of odd when I have a Xeno character who can fly something that uses cruiser weapons, but I cannot fly a gunboat, and that's kind of odd. I can probably see if a few people will try to make a Xeno liner like this, but I'm really not sure. And okay, let's quickly talk about the actual roleplay implementations about this, because this is one of those things you kind of need to address. At the time of making this video, almost all houses except for Liberty have restrictions on these things. The people running these houses were really quick to react to this change, and they made a registry. Some houses would actually make you pay, while other houses just would need you to register this thing. Liberty currently doesn't have that, but I'm not sure if that's gonna remain the case for long, but there you go. So, civilian carrier. Do we need this thing? Was the barge really such a game-breaking ship due to the size and its usage that we really needed to change it to this? Is this a better replacement? That's the question. Personally speaking, no. I'm probably not really going to dish out my money for either of these ships, but I can see how many people will sorry about that, will welcome the change. But I don't know. I can sort of see why this would be fun, but I'm gonna miss the barge, quite frankly. I really am. So, personal thoughts on how to make these ships better currently, because they're not good ships at this point. One is completely broken, while the other one is completely overpowered. Giving this thing one battleship light turret is a must. Come on, you even have lighter ships, battle cruisers with at least one flag turret to fend off bombers. It is needed on this thing. Please add it. See this one turret over here? Please add it there. Please, 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 please. We will need it. Secondly, you really might want to give this thing at least 2 heavy slots for cruiser turrets, because, well, I'm not really saying this thing should be a PvP ship, but I don't even know. I kind of feel like this is underpowered in some way. I can't even explain this. But my biggest problem with this ship is that we had so many problems with jump drive, starting from jump trading to single jump drive, battleships jumping in and out of systems when they're about to die. And now you give literally every ID the chance to use jump drives on this thing. What are you doing? I realize we have the changes now that we cannot jump a few systems across, I think more than 4. Feel free to correct me if I'm wrong. But seriously, what were you thinking? But I suppose, it's only been a few days, so obviously some sort of changes are going to be balanced in, especially when we're going to see, like, quad Dragonfly, dual basic missile gunboats rolling around, insta-killing and everything. But, I mean, I have faith in the dev team, but this recent change is kinda odd, even by our standards. And I'm really waiting to see whether or not they're going to leave it as it is, or they're actually going to do some sort of tweaks or changes. They probably will, and if they will, I'm going to follow up with another video. But for now, hopefully this video helped you kind of realize the situation, and whether or not you want to actually keep or buy this ship. This was Spazzy Dragon, aka Syndromes. Thank you for watching.